Have you ever been in a relationship where everything seemed fine one day, only to find yourself questioning if something's changed the next? Maybe you've noticed a subtle shift in the way they look at you, talk to you, or show affection. The signs are often so faint that they're easy to overlook, but trust me, when someone no longer loves you, their behavior will shift in ways that are hard to ignore. When love starts to fade, it doesn't just disappear overnight, it pulls away in small, often unnoticed ways. Today, we're diving into 5 early signs that someone is emotionally pulling away from you, so you can spot the red flags before they turn into a bigger problem. When someone you love starts pulling away, it can be an unsettling experience, often leaving you wondering if you've done something wrong, or if the love you once shared is starting to fade. The first 2 signs of emotional detachment can be some of the most heartbreaking to witness: a decrease in communication and a sudden lack of physical affection. Let's delve deeper into these signs, as they can be some of the earliest indicators that someone is emotionally distancing themselves. One of the first things you may notice when someone is starting to pull away emotionally is a decrease in communication. Now, communication is the lifeblood of any relationship, whether it's through texts, calls, or face-to-face conversations. In the early stages of a relationship, communication flows effortlessly. You find yourselves texting throughout the day, sending memes or just checking in with each other, talking about your day or sharing little moments that might not seem important, but that's what builds the foundation of intimacy. But, as someone starts to emotionally detach, you may begin to notice that this once effortless communication starts to slow down. The texts may become less frequent, the conversations shorter, and the once steady stream of messages might turn into long silences. At first, you might convince yourself that they're just busy or going through a tough time. But as these long silences stretch, you start to wonder if it's more than just life getting in the way. It's one thing if they're caught up with work or something major in their life, but if they're emotionally available to everyone else but you, that's a red flag. Communication is how we show we care, and when someone pulls back in this area, it often means they're withdrawing from the emotional connection you once shared. You can feel this absence. The lack of updates about their day or the moments you once shared now feels like a distant memory. You start to think about the times when they used to check in on you, when a simple, "How's your day?" text would arrive out of the blue. But now, that's replaced with a cold silence or one-word answers that don't carry the same warmth they used to. It can leave you questioning, do they not care anymore? And the truth is, they might not be emotionally invested in the relationship as they once were. The more you try to reach out and bridge the gap, the more distant they seem to become. They may not directly say it, but their lack of communication speaks volumes. It's not just the absence of messages, it's the absence of emotional presence. It's a sign that they no longer feel the same urgency to connect, to share, or to communicate the way they once did. The emotional distance begins to manifest in the silence between you. Another sign that someone is pulling away emotionally is the sudden lack of physical affection. This one can be especially painful because affection is such a tangible expression of love. Think back to the early days of your relationship, when your partner would hold your hand in public, lean in for a hug without you having to ask, or kiss you as a sign of love before leaving for work. These physical gestures might have been second nature at one point. They weren't just actions, they were ways of showing care, tenderness, and a sense of closeness. When someone starts to emotionally pull away, however, these little physical moments fade into the background, and it can leave you feeling confused and rejected. Imagine reaching for their hand while you're out for a walk or sitting together on the couch and, instead of reciprocating, they pull back, or they don't seem as eager to be close. This is often one of the first changes you'll notice, the absence of touch. It's not that they're suddenly cold or distant in every way, but those simple, loving gestures start to slip away. You might find yourself asking, why don't they want to hold my hand anymore? Why don't they want to cuddle up the way we used to? Sometimes, it's more subtle. Maybe they still hug you, but it feels more like a formality than an act of love. Their kisses feel distant, lacking the passion and care they once held. These changes can be devastating because physical affection is one of the primary ways humans communicate emotional closeness. When this starts to fade, it can leave you feeling unsure of where you stand in the relationship. Physical affection is often a way to bond, a reassurance of love and care, and when that reassurance starts to disappear, it feels like something essential is missing from your connection. When someone stops being physically affectionate, it's not always because they're angry with you or that they no longer care. It could be that they've stopped emotionally investing in the relationship. They might still be there physically, but emotionally, they're elsewhere. Their lack of physical affection could be a reflection of their growing emotional distance. It's like a silent withdrawal, one that doesn't always make a sound but is felt deeply within. You might try to bridge this gap by being more affectionate, but when it's not reciprocated, it starts to feel like you're the only one trying to hold on. This lack of affection often leads to more confusion and hurt because it's not just a physical change, it's an emotional one. The affection that once came naturally now feels forced, and this emotional detachment can be even more painful than a disagreement or an argument. Physical affection often requires emotional vulnerability, and when someone stops being affectionate, they are telling you, in their own way, that they no longer feel that vulnerability with you. Both of these early signs, reduced communication and a lack of physical affection, are difficult to confront, but they are often the first indicators that someone is emotionally pulling away. These subtle shifts can leave you feeling confused, unsure of what's going wrong, and heartbroken by the lack of connection. What makes it even harder is that these signs don't always come with a clear explanation. The silence, the coldness, the avoidance, they all suggest that something has changed, but the real question is, why? At times, these changes are a result of growing emotional disconnection, and while they might not always mean the end of a relationship, they are often signs that something needs attention. Recognizing these signs early can help you understand where things are heading and give you the opportunity to address the emotional distance before it turns into an irreparable gap. The key is awareness and communication. If you start to see these signs, it's time to have an open and honest conversation about where you both stand. The sooner you address it, the better chance you have at understanding what's really happening in your relationship. When someone starts emotionally pulling away from you, the subtle signs become harder to ignore. One of the earliest and most telling indicators is the avoidance of intimate moments. This doesn't just mean avoiding physical intimacy, but it also involves a deeper emotional withdrawal that manifests in the most personal aspects of your relationship. Intimacy in a relationship goes beyond the physical. It's about sharing those quiet, vulnerable moments that bond you to each other. In the beginning, you might remember how easily your partner would sit close to you, gaze into your eyes, or lean in to have a deep conversation about life's little mysteries. But when emotional distance sets in, these intimate exchanges begin to disappear. If you've found that your partner is avoiding moments that once felt like sacred spaces, whether that's a quiet dinner, a shared memory, or even the act of just sitting together without words, it's a sign that they are emotionally withdrawing. You might reach out, trying to initiate closeness, but your efforts are met with a lack of response. Maybe they sit farther away, they avoid making eye contact, or they quickly shift the conversation when it veers into something that feels too intimate or personal. These moments of emotional intimacy are what made your connection unique, and when someone pulls away, they stop seeking these moments with you. This avoidance can also show up in small ways. Maybe they no longer initiate plans to spend time together or seem distracted when you try to have deeper conversations. When emotional intimacy fades, it's as if they've already begun building an emotional wall around themselves, leaving you on the outside. It can feel like your partner is physically present, but emotionally, they are miles away. The very things that once made you feel close, sharing fears, dreams, or even just the joy of being together, start to seem out of reach. It's not just the absence of sex or affection, it's the loss of connection, of being able to be your true self with someone who used to see and understand you completely. If these moments of emotional closeness are fading, it's a red flag that something deeper is happening. When someone emotionally pulls away, another noticeable shift is their indifference to your needs or feelings. Love is often expressed through understanding and empathy. When you're in a relationship, you care about each other's happiness, well-being, and growth. You celebrate each other's victories, comfort each other through hardships, and find joy in simply being there for one another. But when emotional detachment sets in, one of the first things you'll notice is how little they seem to care about what you're going through. It's like they're no longer invested in your life, in your emotions, or in your needs. Imagine a situation where you've had a difficult day at work, or maybe you're dealing with something personal, and you turn to your partner for comfort, only to find that they're distracted or uninterested. Their response might be dismissive or, at worst, absent altogether. They may not ask how your day went or may brush off your concerns as unimportant. This indifference isn't just about forgetting to ask about your day, it's about a deeper emotional disconnection. When someone is emotionally involved, they'll care about your happiness, your struggles, your fears. They'll notice when something's wrong, and they'll be there to offer support or a listening ear. But when they no longer love you in the way they once did, they stop making an effort to be emotionally available to you. Your needs no longer feel like a priority. This shift in empathy can be incredibly painful because it's a stark contrast to the person you once knew, the person who would listen to you, vent, comfort you when you were down, and celebrate even your smallest wins. When that level of care fades away, it's as if you're no longer seen or heard by the one person who should be your biggest source of support. They may still go through the motions, perhaps they'll ask how you were, but without the genuine concern they once had. These small acts of indifference can slowly eat away at the connection you shared, leaving you feeling alone even when you're together. The lack of empathy isn't just a momentary lapse, it's a sign that they've emotionally checked out and are no longer as invested in the relationship. You might find yourself wondering, why don't they care about me the way they used to? Did I do something wrong? The truth is, it's not necessarily about you. Emotional withdrawal often happens because someone is struggling internally or they've shifted their emotional focus elsewhere. But when the person you love stops making you feel seen or valued, it can be an incredibly isolating experience. You may begin to feel like you're carrying the weight of the relationship on your own, trying to meet their needs and yours, while they seem distant and indifferent to your emotional world. This lack of emotional reciprocity, where your partner seems emotionally absent or indifferent to your feelings, can be just as painful as the other signs of emotional withdrawal. The emotional labor that you once shared begins to feel one-sided, and it can lead you to question your place in the relationship. Are you still a priority? Are your needs still valid? These are important questions to ask, because in a healthy relationship, both partners should be emotionally invested and engaged in each other's well-being. It's important to recognize that emotional withdrawal doesn't always happen because someone wants to hurt you. Sometimes, it's due to their own internal struggles or feelings of dissatisfaction. But when someone stops caring about your needs or feelings, it's a sign that they're emotionally distancing themselves. It's an early warning signal that they may no longer be invested in the relationship, or they may be emotionally preoccupied with something else. Either way, it's a crucial sign to pay attention to, as it marks the beginning of a deeper disconnect that, if not addressed, can lead to the end of the relationship. These two signs, the avoidance of intimate moments and indifference to your needs, are often the first cracks that appear when someone starts to pull away emotionally. They're subtle at first, almost easy to ignore or justify, but over time, these small shifts can compound into a larger emotional distance that becomes harder to bridge. If you find yourself in a relationship where you're no longer receiving the emotional closeness and support you once had, it's important to address these changes. Acknowledging them is the first step toward understanding whether the relationship can be salvaged or if it's time to let go. It's never easy, but recognizing the signs early can help you make the right decision for yourself and your emotional well-being. As you navigate the complexities of any relationship, one of the most difficult signs of emotional withdrawal you may experience is a noticeable shift in how much effort your partner puts into resolving conflicts. In the early stages of a relationship, when love is fresh and feelings are strong, both partners are typically willing to work through disagreements, have tough conversations, and make the necessary efforts to maintain peace and understanding. You argue, you fight, but you also come together to make things right. But when someone is emotionally pulling away, one of the most striking changes is their lack of willingness to engage in conflict resolution. At first, you might notice that your arguments seem to drag on longer than they should, or your partner seems to shut down more easily. They might give you short, dismissive answers or even avoid the conversation altogether. Instead of addressing the issue at hand, they might withdraw further, leaving you feeling frustrated and unheard. This unwillingness to engage is often a defense mechanism. It's a way of distancing themselves emotionally without having to confront the underlying feelings that are causing the disconnect. Rather than working through the issue, they choose to ignore it, hoping that it will resolve on its own or simply not be addressed. This can be incredibly frustrating for the partner who is still invested in resolving the situation. When someone stops putting effort into resolving conflict, it feels like they've given up on the relationship altogether. Healthy relationships require open communication, empathy, and effort from both parties. When one partner stops making the effort to communicate, to understand the other's perspective, or to reach a compromise, it's a clear sign that they no longer prioritize the relationship in the same way. Conflict resolution is an emotional investment, and when one person is no longer willing to invest in finding solutions, it leaves the other partner feeling helpless and disconnected. This behavior can manifest in various ways. Sometimes, they might respond to conflict with indifference, offering little more than a shrug or a few choice words. Other times, they might deflect or avoid the conversation entirely, claiming they don't want to fight or that they're too tired to talk. But in reality, this avoidance is a form of emotional detachment. It signals that they no longer have the emotional energy or desire to work through the relationship's challenges. The more this pattern continues, the more you feel like you're fighting alone. You may find yourself trying to communicate, trying to get your point across, but it feels as though your partner is no longer willing to meet you halfway. It's not just that they're avoiding conflict, they're avoiding connection. Another painful sign of emotional withdrawal is the lack of shared future plans or discussions about the future. In the early stages of a relationship, planning for the future is often a thrilling experience. You talk about where you want to go on vacation, what kind of life you want to build together, or even plans as simple as what you want to do for the weekend. These discussions about the future reflect the desire for long-term commitment and growth together. But when someone begins emotionally pulling away, they stop engaging in these conversations. They might avoid talking about plans beyond the immediate future, or they might change the subject when you bring up long-term commitments. At first, you might chalk it up to them being busy, or perhaps they're just not as focused on future plans at the moment. But as time goes on, you may notice that they no longer show interest in discussing your future together. They might be hesitant or dismissive when you talk about your dreams or plans, showing little enthusiasm or desire to engage. This can be heartbreaking, as it signals that they no longer see a future with you in it. The excitement you once shared about building a life together starts to fade, replaced with uncertainty and silence. This shift can leave you questioning your place in the relationship. If someone is emotionally pulling away, they may start to avoid making plans for the long term, subtly telling you that they no longer see you as part of their future. It's not necessarily that they want to end things, but that they no longer have the same level of emotional investment in the future of the relationship. They may still be physically present, but they've mentally and emotionally checked out. This lack of enthusiasm for future plans doesn't just apply to big decisions like moving in together or marriage, it can also affect smaller, everyday plans. You may find that they're no longer interested in making weekend plans with you, or they don't seem to care about the things that once mattered, like attending family events or celebrating milestones. The absence of future discussions is a powerful signal that they are emotionally disengaged. When someone stops engaging in discussions about the future, it's like the relationship has stalled. The emotional connection that was once driving the relationship forward now feels like it's stuck in neutral. You may feel like you're alone in imagining what your life could look like together, while your partner remains distant, unwilling to take part in these future conversations. This can be incredibly disorienting, as it's one of the clearest signs that the emotional bond is weakening. The longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to ignore. What makes these signs particularly painful is that they often come without a clear explanation. You might find yourself wondering, what happened? Why are they pulling away? It's often difficult to pinpoint exactly when the emotional distance began, and even harder to understand why your partner has stopped putting in the effort. But these behaviors, avoiding conflict resolution and disengaging from future plans, are powerful indicators that emotional withdrawal is taking place. It's important to recognize that emotional detachment doesn't always mean the end of the relationship. Sometimes, it can be a sign of personal struggles, a lack of communication, or simply growing apart. But when you begin to notice that your partner is no longer willing to work through conflicts or engage in future planning, it's a signal that they may no longer be emotionally invested in the relationship. These signs are early red flags, warning you that something has shifted, and if left unaddressed, this emotional distance can lead to an even greater divide. If you find yourself experiencing these changes in your relationship, it's important to pay attention and reflect on the situation. Communication is key. Addressing these issues early, before they escalate, is crucial to understanding where you both stand. If your partner is emotionally pulling away, it's essential to have an open and honest conversation about what's going on. Relationships require effort from both sides, and sometimes, this effort needs to be reinvigorated. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward either reconnecting or making the difficult decision to move on.